Welcome to the Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lock Shop. It's Nielsen and Hustler, as always, presented to you by our wonderful friends and partners at Coolbet Canada. Go to coolbet.com, use the bonus code LOCKSHOP. You'll get a 100% deposit bonus on your initial deposit, up to $200, just in time for a fresh new NFL season. And if you want to use all of that bonus on NFL futures, you've come to the right place because we got some more picks for you there. Stay cool, bet responsibly with The Lock Shop and Coolbet. Huss, what's up, buddy?
Dude, it is great to talk to you again. First things first, congratulations. I mean, you are doing such a great job on the CFL. What a game on Sunday night. What a thriller. And I will say, I'm putting this up for the call of the year. The cojones on Dave Dickenson throwing a bomb from his own 23 on third down and a play. And you called it at the end. What is going on at IG Field? Tell you what, it's been a pretty exciting start to the CFL season, despite the fact that we haven't had a lot of the scoring we're usually accustomed to. Anyways, it's been great seeing you do these Bomber games. Can't wait to get you back out here to the Peg for Banjo Bowl weekend. We'll talk about that a little bit later on when Kris joins us, because we got something cooking for you Lock Shop peeps here in the Peg. And I'll tell you what, man, this is the best time of year. We're doing fantasy drafts right now. We get to one more long weekend of the summer. And then we come back in. We got Thursday night, Bucks, Cowboys, Saturday afternoon here in Winnipeg. Biggest game of the season, Riders, Bombers in the Banjo Bowl. After the biggest season here after, of course, the Labor Day Classic this weekend. And then the first full Sunday of NFL action. Man, this is honestly, I think this is my favorite time of the sporting calendar.
It is exciting, buddy. This is pretty good. And you're right on the CFL. Like, we've had 4 weeks, and there's been 3 games that have either finished at the 1 yard line or with no time on the clock. Like, it's been incredible to get 3 of those games in 4 weeks. And I've had the pleasure of calling 2 of them, including that kick from Paredes that came up just short from 52. I felt bad because the wind was into his face, and I didn't mention it on the call. So that's probably why he came up short. But the call by Dickinson, like in a 6-6 game in the first half on your own 24 or 26 or whatever it was, brings out the punt team, calls a timeout, brings back out the offense, and it wasn't inches, it was 1.5 yards. Then they decide to throw it 40 yards deep, and Huff catches it. Like, it was remarkable. I couldn't believe they did that at that time. It blew my mind.
I was sitting in the other corner of the stadium, and we're sort of watching. We're like, wait a second, they're going to go for it. What? They're passing. Oh my God, he caught it. And then of course it ends up with him being stripped and Big Hill taking it back for a fumble. But honestly, catching the football, the fumble, all of that was almost secondary to the stunned silence around me of just the fact that Dickinson had the balls to call that. And let's face it, this wasn't freaking Bo Levi Mitchell behind center. This was a dude in his 6th quarter of professional football.
He looks like a little mini Bo Levi with the way he's played. Man, was he excellent over the weekend, and put himself in a good spot for the upcoming Labor Day game against Edmonton. But you're right. That was, hey, nobody saw it coming. So I guess It was the right time to call it, but that was wild. Just wild.
Huge stones. It was a heck of a football game. I mean, a lot of defense. I mean, I think, and we'll get into this when we talk about the Labor Day games. I think the Bombers sort of shot themselves in the foot at times. They just couldn't catch the football, which was a big problem. And interestingly enough, the Bombers signed Naaman Roosevelt, former Rider, just in time for the Labor Day Classic, as if we needed another story going into the weekend. But overall, it's been there's been some really exciting games, but you have to think that sooner or later, we're going to start to see these offenses click the way we're used to seeing in the Canadian Football League. And maybe we'll see some of these totals go up, because if you've just been hitting under so far through this season, you've been making some money.
If you are watching The Lock Shop right now, subscribe to the podcast. Just search The Lock Shop on all your podcasting platforms. Give us a subscription there so you never miss an episode. We're going to get to some NFL futures. We're going to start with the CFL here in just a moment. We're going to get to the partner parlay. Kris Abbott's going to pop by a little bit later on. The Tour Championship we're definitely going to get to. And let's take a moment here and celebrate our second win in 4 weeks on The Lock Shop. Nice work, Huss.
Oh, Pat Cantlay, you are the man.
We loved him.
This
loved
was
him.
a victory. This was a victory. And honestly, I have not had a great year compared to the last couple seasons with betting on golf. And I mean, Pat Cantlay, I think I've only taken him twice this season, and he won both times. Now, the Memorial was a little different because John Rahm had about a 50-stroke lead and then tested positive for COVID. So
that's true.
I will take that one. I mean, again, it's scoreboard, right? But this one on the weekend, the epic playoff, and funny story. I mean, you of course were in the booth getting ready for the game. Because of the Sunday game, we didn't get into the usual tailgate that we had done before. People were coming in from the lake and whatnot. So I was at the bar down the street waiting to go to the game. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll watch this playoff hole. I'll watch this second playoff hole. And all of a sudden it's coming up to game time. And I'm like, I got to leave. And shout out to a couple buddies who gave me stroke by stroke text updates. And I mean, it was absolutely a thriller. The funny thing was I PVR'd the game so I could go back and, watch afterwards, get ready for Winnipeg Sports Talk the next day for anything you might have missed in the stands. And the TSN channel that I taped had the entire playoff. So I did get to relive it when I got home. And then, of course, see the second half. So, Cantlay, and we will get to the Tour Championship in a minute. Huge win. It was even better because I'll be honest, like many of you, I can't stand Bryson DeChambeau and the way that it all went with him missing chance after chance after chance. And then Cantlay putting up his performance with the putter, one of the all-time greatest in the history of stat keeping on the PGA Tour. I'll tell you what, if he brings that putter to East Lake on the weekend with a 2-shot lead to begin, it's going to be tough. That being said, this was as I said, it was a historic putting performance. So anyways, I'm really interested, but yeah, it was a great way to get through the BMW with a nice little win, adding to the Coolbet account just in time to lay it down on well, actually it didn't take me very long. Right into NFL futures.
I was gonna say,
and we'll get to some of
come
those
on now. You act like you're saving it. It's not already gone. Come on, please. All right.
Cantlay definitely is my lock shop MVP for golf picks personally this year.
That's big.
Very, very good to me.
Yeah, that's big. All right, let's get into week 5 in the CFL. Obviously a huge weekend. Will anybody be stupid enough to bet an over? Well, my hand is up. I got an over on the card this week. And you know what? It's just so crazy hopping on a Coolbet and see all these CFL totals at 42 and 43 points, Hustler. And it's justified. I mean, it's been a low scoring season so far, but it still blows my mind when I see the highest total is, when I looked this morning, let me just double check on it here so I'm not incorrect. Highest total right now, 2 games are at 43, 2 games at 42.5. That's unheard of. In the last 20 years in the Canadian Football League, maybe ever.
Yeah, I think, some interesting line movement actually from last night until today. I guess we may as well just get into this. I mean, I
mentioned that in both your picks on the screen. I kind of laid out how it's moved since late last night.
Yeah. So just last night, I mean, we had 3 games that were 42.5. The Bomber Rider game has ticked up to 43 right now. But I mean, essentially the entire board is in between 42.5 and 43 for the totals. But the Bomber game, and I know none of us have picked this game, so I'll mention it. It was 2.5 opening. It was 2.5 last night. That's jumped 2 full points today. Bombers right now plus 4.5 in the game and plus 170 on the money line. So I'll be honest, if that was what the number was last night, I may have gone to the Bombers. I'll probably for fun, maybe sprinkle a little money line on them for the big game. You got to do it. But I went for 2 underdogs on the weekend. And I really do think this is one of those weeks that a lot of times you can throw at the records. You can throw at a lot of other things because of the nature of the rivalries, how big the game is, and how the coaches prepare and focus on these opponents that they know very well. So the Argo-Hamilton game is interesting. And again, I bet this yesterday at plus 3.5 for the Argos. And I just felt that this was a number that maybe was an overreaction to Hamilton's first win of the season last week against Montreal. And to be honest with you, Montreal wasn't very good in that game. Granted, Hamilton was better and they've lost against 2 pretty good teams, but they lost to Toronto. They lost to Winnipeg. Toronto beat Winnipeg in one of their 2 games so far. So, with the extra week to prepare for the Ticats, I've been really impressed with the Argos so far. And to get 3.5 points, I'm going to go with Toronto on this one. I'm going to try not to overreact to Hamilton's win. And listen, I could absolutely see Hamilton win this game, but I guess the bottom line is I respect the Argos enough from what we've seen them so far this year to think that this is going to be a hell of a football game. I could absolutely see the Argos winning this game outright. So if I'm going to get 3.5 points, I will do that. As I said, maybe a little bit tougher of a bet to make right now at 2.5. And to be honest, I think that line makes a bit more sense. But I'm in on the Argos with the spread. And then the other game, and I see this one's going a little back and forth. It's back to 6 right now on Coolbet. So I guess, at one point there was a little bit of a slip up. To me, this is just too big of a number. Now, I realize that the Elks haven't been practicing. They're going to get back to practice and have a few days, but they really have been shut down. But when you think about the way that this offense has been going so far this season, the only thing they couldn't do was put it into the end zone. And then they got it done. They finally got off the schneid and got that win against BC. And then everything sort of stopped to a standstill. And in the meantime, Calgary seemingly has found the successor to Bo Levi Mitchell and Jake Mayer, who, pitched a hell of a game. They still only put up 16 points in that game, Dustin. So,
yeah,
I think that there's a lot of flash with what Calgary did offensively with the numbers. And really, it was more the surprise factor that this young guy's coming in and looking so competent as a CFL quarterback. But as I said, I think the Bombers maybe made it look a little closer than it should have been with some of their inability to keep the chains moving with catching the football. And again, we're talking about Edmonton and Calgary on Labor Day weekend. I mean, I just think that this will be a heck of a battle. I think it's going to be a tough task for the Elks to, get back and, reestablish themselves from what they did in the BC game. But all that being said, I have a hard time laying a number like that with Calgary in a rivalry game, even if the Elks missed an entire week of practice. So I'm going to take the points in this one. I'm in on 6 +6 for Edmonton. And those are my two, both the Monday games, actually. So we'll have to wait for those. But I could go a lot of ways on this. But, when I saw those lines last night at +3.5 and +6, I think these would be close games. I think they should be great games. So it'll be fun to take the points and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm on both of these games as well, actually. Both of our games will be on Monday. Elks and Stamps, I'm going to go over 42.5 points. Like, we're going to see at least one over this weekend. And you mentioned it with Mayer. I mean, he's gone back-to-back 300-yard games to start his career. The Elks defense, certainly not a defense that's going to be walked over. It's not the Bombers defense. So with the way that Mayer has been playing so far, back at home, going up against an Elks defense that hasn't been on the field in pretty much 2 weeks by the time this game goes, I think they're going to be able to score points. And I have more faith in Harris and Wilder, who's had a terrific start to the season. Yeah. Ellingson had a great game the last time they were out in BC. Darrell Walker's had a pretty good season, hasn't been sensational so far. I have more faith in the Elks moving the ball against this Stamps D than a disjointed Bombers offense that had some drops this past weekend. Kenny Lawler, as good as he was, I mean, he's had a few drops here over the last couple of weeks. So I really like the over actually in this game. 42.5. I would think that number's up over 43 by the time we actually get to kickoff, maybe even higher. So I'll get in on it right now at over 42.5 for the Elks and Stamps. And then I do love everything you said about the Argos. I do think, you look at what's happening with that Ticats team coming off the win, not seeing the Argos recently. I think we might forget what the Argos accomplished in their last time out, right? So with that being said, tight game. I'm going to go with the home side, but I'm just going on the money line. I don't have the faith in them to cover, especially not the 3.5 that it was at last night, maybe the 2.5 in a field goal game. But I'll go Ticats at home, money line on Monday, which actually pays not bad at -137. So hopefully we had a close game and we can both cash our tickets this week in that Ticats Argos game.
Yeah, and of course, we haven't touched this Montreal-Ottawa game, and I'm trying to remember whether it opened up at 3 or 3.5, but we were talking about it I was talking about it with Remus on WST on Monday. We usually try and jump on these lines early and sort of, see if there's anything that sticks out, and that was one. And I said, by game time, I bet we could see it pushing, 7 points for Montreal just because of what everyone is seeing with the Ottawa Redblacks and how difficult they are having a time scoring points. I didn't expect we'd get to it on Wednesday. I mean, it literally immediately moved to 6.5, and who knows whether that'll get to 7.
I just double checked, Huss. It opened at 3 when Coolbet
opened at 3.
I just went back on my tweets because I retweeted the Coolbet tweet, and it opened at Owls -3.
Yeah, so not surprising, this moved pretty significantly. Although I will say, considering what we saw from Montreal, I mean, I think they're going to win this game, and I think the money line bet's probably relatively safe. But how confident are you that they'll cover a touchdown in this game? Because Ottawa's defense has been quite good. I mean, listen, if Ottawa can do anything offensively, this could be a close game. But I do think Montreal bounces back on it. That being said, that really is the appetizer when it comes to this week in the Canadian Football League. We'll have that one on Friday night, and then we get into, or I guess that's a Thursday night game. That's Friday.
That's a Friday.
And that's Friday. And then the Bomber Rider Labor Day game, I'm getting the Banjo Bowl mixed up, is Sunday afternoon, 5 o'clock here, 4 o'clock in Edmonton. And then we've got the annual doubleheader, East game early, Argos Ticats, and West game late, Elks and Stampeders.
After a slow start, we're starting to come around here a little bit. I'm up to 3-5. You're 4-4. I think I've hit 3 of my last 4 after that 0-4 start in the Canadian Football League this year. So hopefully we can continue to ride that. All right, let's head. You know what, though? Quickly on CFL, one more. Are you surprised that we're still seeing all these unders? Like, the offense hasn't started to click yet?
A little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
I've bet over the last couple. I mean, I think I'm 3-1 in the last 2 weeks, and the only one that I lost. I mean, I did take the over in the Bomber Argo game on the road, and that one cashed comfortably. And I sort of thought we'd see more of that. I mean, I kind of thought that Calgary would be able to move the football. I just expected more from the Bomber offense. So while I was at the game, it was a lot of fun. It was exciting. I think there's still a lot more for these offenses to show. And to be honest, I probably will get on the over on this Bomber Rider game, even though historically we've seen games, right in around this number. And I think both of these defenses will be ready to go. I'm expecting both coaches and both offensive coordinators to lay it all on the line, trying to get a big win in the first of this home and home. So should be a lot of fun. And I do expect scoring to go up. I mean, I'm not sure whether we wanted to do a little experiment and just bet over on every game for the next few weeks and see what happens. But part of me, I feel like taking a hunt and just putting 25 on the over on each of these 4 games and see what happens. That being said, Ottawa's still playing in these games, and if they can't get to double digits, unless they're going to get blown out, that's an auto under every week. And that's been a big part of the story as well.
All right, let's move from the Canadian Football League to the National Football League. We've probably given you over 30 futures bets already, so you can go back to the last couple episodes if you want to get on those. We've got 10 more for you here today, and every time I dive back into Coolbet and all these future bets, I just find more that I love. I'm sitting there, I'm like, yep, done. How's this not already a higher number? So pretty excited about what we got, Huss, and I really like a few of yours as well. You got 5. What do you got?
All right, let's start it off with I've talked a lot about the Washington football team. We were discussing, gave out them to win the division at 3-1 a couple weeks ago, as well as make the playoffs at +170. Part of that, I'm going to continue to ride with the WFT. Their win total's 8.5. I think they win 9 games. I mean, this is I almost like this even more than the others, but I think because of how weak the division is, I think that's why there's such value in them to win the division. And to be honest, the Coolbet line is the best I've seen anywhere for Washington football team if you're planning on betting it. They're routinely about +200 at many other books. And even after we gave it on the lock shop, it came down a little bit from +300 to +275. That's still there right now. That's as good of a number as I've seen anywhere for the Washington football team. I love their defense. I think that will lead the way. They've got a competent quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think Terry McLaurin's going to have a big season. I love Antonio Gibson. So, they got Ron Rivera, who's not afraid to make a ballsy call and get after it. So I got the Washington football team over 8.5 wins. Now, go back to a couple weeks ago when we were just getting into this NFL season. And I was talking about the Rams' potential to win the NFC, and I certainly still think that it's there. But I'll admit, I was sort of overlooking the 49ers. And last night, I was actually considering giving them a I was actually considering giving them an under. And then I went and dug into their schedule. And we have to remember, they finished 6-10 last year. So they've got, I believe, a 4th place schedule right now. When you go down their list of opponents this year, and I realize things can change, but based on what we know right now, I don't think it's almost impossible to see how they don't go over on this. They start at Detroit. They go to Philly. Home games against 2 good teams in Green Bay and Seattle, but definitely winnable. At Arizona, home to Indy. At Chicago, Arizona, Rams, both home games. And then listen to this finishing stretch. At Jacksonville, home to Minnesota, at Seattle. Then they go Cincinnati, Atlanta, Tennessee, Houston, and the Rams in week 17 in a game that, may or may not mean something. So I think that they're going to start with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that Trey Lance is going to get in there at some point. And when they do, watch out. To me, this is I'm not really high on the Niners to, get to the Super Bowl or anything like that. But when we're talking about win totals, I just look at this schedule and I have a hard time imagining that they don't get to 11 wins. So I'm on the Niners for the over. A few props. Laviska Shenault Jr. of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Love him.
High on him in fantasy. I've been, watching that. Trevor Lawrence looked really good in that last exhibition game. And I kind of think that he's going to turn into a player that they use in a number of different ways to get him the football. And man, is he explosive when he gets it into his hands. Not to mention, I think the Jags are going to be in a lot of situations where they have plenty of opportunities for garbage time. And that all counts when it comes to the bets or fantasy. So big on Shenault over 775.5. I do like a couple unders. Deshaun Jackson under 550. He's always hurt. You've got Jalen Reagor and Devonta Smith now that I think will be the focuses of the offense, Dallas Goedert, and a quarterback that runs the football a lot. And he hasn't hit 300 yards in the last 2 seasons. So I don't see any reason why Deshaun Jackson would be having a big comeback season. Give me the under on his 550 for the year. And Javonte Williams, listen, this is an intriguing player. And he's coming into a backfield where I think there will be opportunity for him, but he still does have Melvin Gordon somewhat ahead of him. And a number of 800 is a lot. Teddy Bridgewater is going to get the start. I think they'll be throwing the football with more success. They won't lean on the running game as much. And it might take a little bit of time for him to get his feet wet and really be comfortable in the NFL. So to me, that number just struck me as being very high. I will go with the under on that. And then I'll just toss in 3 other awards. You can go to Coolbet. They've got all the awards, coaches and whatnot. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Trevor Lawrence at plus 400. This is wild. He was about plus 275 or plus 300 a day or two ago. And of course, then Mac Jones was named the starting quarterback of the Patriots. Mac Jones 2 weeks ago or last week, I believe, was plus 1050. He's now the favorite at plus 250 now that he's the starting quarterback. Listen, I think I get it, but I think it's a little bit of an overreaction. And I do believe in Trevor Lawrence. I think he is the guy that we all thought that he was going to be. We really saw that in the 3rd preseason game. There's going to be some ups and downs, but the bottom line is he'll be playing day in and day out. So will Mac Jones. But I think Trevor Lawrence at plus 400 is great value for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year, Chase Young from the Washington football team. I think the guy is an absolute sack machine. I've said it before. I'm very high on the team. I think they win the division. I think they do it on the back of that defense and Chase Young leading the way. So I think he'll get a lot of love for that award. The other guy that I would consider for Defensive Player of the Year, if he can stay healthy, and this is a big if, is Derwin James from the Chargers. But I'm going to take Derwin James at 30-1 for the Comeback Player of the Year. We focus so much on Dak Prescott and the quarterbacks, Christian McCaffrey. But I'll tell you what, if the Chargers are as good as I think that they can be, challenging the Chiefs in the AFC West, being a playoff team, doing it with a rookie coach, I think the defense is going to be a big part of that. And I'll tell you what, right now, if Derwin James plays 17 games, mark my words, he'll be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. And I think people will give him a long look for Comeback Player of the Year, considering what he's been through, not one, but the last 2 seasons. So great value there on Derwin James, 30-1 for Comeback Player of the Year. And those are the final. We had to stop somewhere, Dusty. We'll get to actual game pick next week, but that's putting a bow on it from my end for props for the NFL season.
I guess a couple of things. One, if you're watching on the live stream right now, subscribe to the podcast, The Lock Shop, on all your podcasting platforms. We'll have you covered all the way throughout the National Football League season. We've been on one episode a week for the last 5 weeks or so. We'll be going back to 2 episodes per week next week with the NFL returning. Kris Abbott is here. He's going to join us after I give you my NFL futures. Then we'll dive into our partner parlay, and we'll get to the Tour Championship after we chat with Kris. I got Sean McDermott as Coach of the Year at plus 1,700 in Buffalo. I don't know why he's like 12th on the list. I just don't understand why a guy who's going to have a Buffalo team that's going to be as good as they're going to be, I don't know why he's not at plus 1,200 or give him a 10-1. He's at 17-1 right now. So I'm just looking at the value on McDermott and thinking that could end up being a bet that pays off big time. I got Keenan Allen over 1,075 yards. Keenan Allen has gone over that total in 3 of the last 4 years, and last year he missed a couple games and was just shy of 1,000, and he's getting an extra game this year. So I love Keenan Allen over 1,075. Kyler Murray over 675 yards rushing. As a rookie, he went off for 555. Last year, he was over 850. Lamar Jackson's number is like 250 yards more than Kyler Murray's number right now. And I think Kyler Murray could rush for more yards than Lamar Jackson. So Kyler Murray at 675 is an absolute steal. Might be my favorite player prop we've had so far. So I love Kyler Murray over 675 yards. I would be shocked if he doesn't rush for 700 yards this year. It's why he's as deadly as he is. It opens up the entire offense when he's running. He's not going to all of a sudden become a pocket passer. I've got Fitzpatrick, you mentioned. You love Washington. Fitzy's TD total right now is at 22.5. Unless he loses the job, and I know they like their young backup there, but unless Fitz loses the job, he's throwing more than 22.5 touchdowns with Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas at tight end, not just Antonio Gibson, but J.D. McKissick, who catches a ton of balls out of the backfield, and they brought in Curtis Samuel, who they can get very creative with as well. So I love Fitzy over 22.5. And then the Green Bay Packers have gone back-to-back seasons with 13 wins. This year, they have another game to play, and their total currently sits at 10.5. They could step back and lose 2 more games and still cover at 10.5. So I love the Packers at 10.5. The division hasn't got any better. Nothing against Justin Fields, but the Vikings aren't much better. The Lions, I don't know how it's possible, but they're worse. And then you've got the Bears, who they're starting Andy Dalton at the beginning of the season. So give me the Packers over 10.5 wins. That one, that's just I know Rodgers has been very in flux this offseason, but 10.5 is disrespectful to a team that's won 13 in back-to-back years.
Well, here's the key thing. When do they play the Lions first? Because how many kneecaps will be chewed off from that first game against Dan Campbell's Motor City Madmen? No, I like it. And you know what? I know we're going to get to Kris and get to the partner parlay and talk about some fun stuff that's coming up. What we might have to do, because it's always fun when we look at guys that we're high on, we give out, a lot of overs. We should maybe, and particularly with you being so into fantasy, and I know we're often thinking about ceiling, but let's think about floor. I think unders are maybe the way to go on a lot of these yardage and receiving props. We may have to do a little under special before next week of some guys that we're fading.
We're always on the overs, right? It's just fun being on the over.
That might be the shrewd move going into next week. But I'll tell you what, if you haven't looked at the NFL offerings right now at Coolbet, get there. You can see the week 1 lines are already up, but at the bottom, you've got the season bets. And I mean, it is literally everything. All the awards, player props and totals for rushing and receiving on like half the league. Rookie of the year, it's all there right now. And as I said, if you haven't bet at Coolbet before, it's a perfect time to start an account, double your money up to $200. You can use the promo code LOCKSHOP.
All right, let's get into our partner parlay. We'll bring in Kris Abbott at the tail end of this. I'm going to go back to the Canadian Football League, and I'm not getting too crazy here. I'm just on the Owls for the partner parlay. We hit the second chance partner parlay last week, which was great. We blew it day of, added another game, and made good. It was terrific.
Oh, I love that. And, it was we had the Dodger game. That was Kris's redo. We got Hamilton on the Friday night when actually we were together and got a chance to watch that game in Winnipeg. And then BC went in and, beat Ottawa. Not a huge surprise. And boom, nice boosted odds. We made up what we lost in the first try, got the mulligan, and let's see if we can keep it going. But I like, we talked about this Alouette game before.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm, confident that they cover 6 or 7 points on the road. I do think they win this football game, though, and I think that's a nice place to start for the parlay.
I thought when we were doing our other picks, I thought about buying it down to like 3.5. I think it gets it to like minus 156 or something if you want to go there with the Alouettes. The only reason I'm not full blown on the Alouettes to cover the spread is because there's some speculation that there might be a quarterback change in Ottawa, and if they were to go to Davis,
Dom Davis. They're backed up as Dom Davis. He was here in Winnipeg for a long time. Trust me, if that happens, we might want to even go heavier on Montreal.
But at least he can move. Like, I love Matt Nichols, but Matt Nichols cannot move right now. So, and plus, the Owls haven't been great since that first game of the year. So I was a little hesitant on the big number, like we talked about earlier. Love them on the money line, minus 270. Where are you going, Huss?
All right. I am going to the beautiful game, and I know we don't talk enough soccer here in our country, but our men's national team has the most legitimate chance to make the World Cup, really probably in the last 20 years. And it all starts on Thursday night at home, Canada taking on Honduras. They've got a game on Sunday against the United States. I believe that one, finally, we're going to get a national team game on regular television. But it all starts, and this is a game that Canada simply has to win. They'll be favored in it. So on the three-way line, so that's regulation, home, draw, tie, I'm taking Canada. We've got all our guys in. Alphonso Davies is back. This is a huge opportunity for Canadian soccer. I'm really excited for this game and excited for this qualifying tournament. And I'm definitely backing our boys to get it done. It's 167 on the three-way, so we need Canada in regulation against Honduras on Thursday night. And I figure we've got some North American football. We'll get some worldwide football and take Canada as we continue our quest to make it to the upcoming World Cup. All
right, so the parlay is supposed to pay plus 222. Kris Abbott has boosted it for us to plus 325. At the end of the episode, you'll be able to go online. You'll find it. It'll be on the left side. Lock Shop boosted partner parlay for 325. It's not up just yet, but it will be up soon. Now, Kris Abbott really wanted that soccer game that Huss took as well, so he had to switch on the fly. So let's bring in Kris here. He ended up going with the an interesting Orioles number. Mr. Abbott, what's up, buddy? Turn on that mic.
Classic. Kris, you're on mute. I'm doing so well. I'm doing well, fellas. Glad to be back on the show. And yeah, I had that soccer pick locked in, and Dusty's texting me and like peeked behind the curtain. He's like, "Can we record a little earlier today?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not available." The reason I wasn't available, I'm lying on the chiropractor's table, and I don't have my phone, so I'm like corresponding via my Apple Watch, and I'm like, I don't know, give me the alternate Baltimore run line, and that's how we came to that today.
So this is Orioles tonight getting 3.5 against the Jays.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, listen, George Springer's out again. It looks like tonight. The Jays are having like the ugliest at bats you could ever imagine here lately. They're not getting it done. And this Baltimore team, I watched the first 2 games of this series. Man, they're scrappy. They're playing good defense. Listen, the other side of it is, are the Jays going to win by 4 runs? I'm not betting on that. So I'm quite happy to bet on the Orioles to cover at least 3.5 here. Listen, you're getting an Orioles win and you're getting, Jays winning up to 3. So at minus 213, I think that's a very, very fair price.
Well, and not to mention, I mean, you put it in with these other 2 and take it up another 100 to a plus 325, a very, very nice number, and a nice bounce back for the boys with the mulligan, getting the Dodgers in, and then we came through with those 2 CFL winners. So a lot of happy people that jumped on that after the initial offering.
I'm a firm believer, boys, that everybody deserves a second chance, especially me. And still, I'm starting my campaign to be chef de mission for the next Olympics. Maybe the ones after China. I'm not sure I want to go to China right now, but I mean, am I not the best thing to ever happen to Canadian women's sports, or what?
Yeah, what'd you do? $100 in the U.S. last night?
Well, it's a whole thing. So I bet. This all started back during the Olympics. So I bet on the Americans to beat the Canadians because, Canada hadn't beat the U.S. in ever, right? And of course, Canada goes to win. Round robin earlier in this women's hockey tournament, same thing. Canada's been losing to the U.S. forever, and Marie-Philippe Poulin is out. All right, betting on the U.S. Canada wins. So last night, even though I wanted to bet for Canada, I'm so happy with the result. I had to be patriotic and put the money on the U.S. women's hockey team. And listen, happy to take the losses there. But I mean, at some point, the sport minister has got to recognize me here.
That's right. Just fading our Canadian teams to gold medals in multiple events, Kris. As I texted you last night, thank you for your service to our great country.
Well, listen, I don't have a lot to offer, so at least I can offer this. So
Kris,
listen, Hustler, I know we teased the people out there with maybe some potential news. Are we ready to talk about that yet, or are we still got to hang on?
Well, listen, I will tell you this. The Lock Shop is getting together next week in Winnipeg for the Banjo Bowl. The guy above me will continue doing his great work calling the game, coming off the Labor Day Classic on the way to the Banjo Bowl. Dusty's going to be in town. He'll be getting in a little bit early. And once this information was made to our friend Kris, he's like, I will be there as well. So with all three of us, with it being week 1 of the National Football League, with everyone fired up, with our first week of our picks for the Circa contest, we're like, you know what? We got to get some people together. And so we're going to be doing a live show. I will tweet this out. I don't want to confirm where it is going to be. Working on a couple places right now, but we'll try and make it somewhere central, a great bar where a lot of people can come in, have a couple with us, hang out. It'll be a great time. We'll be doing it on Friday night, probably early in the evening, in and around the 7 o'clock range. I think probably is what makes the most sense. Get people a chance to get off work and pop by and do it. But the bottom line is we will do it. We'll certainly be recording the podcast there. I'm sure we'll be able to actually probably do some sort of a live stream as well. But for people in Winnipeg, and we'll be talking about it on Winnipeg Sports Talk as well, if you're in town for Banjo Bowl weekend, heck, some Rider fans, if you're coming in a little bit early, come on down and join us. We'll confirm the location next week. We'll be promoted on Winnipeg Sports Talk as well. We'll have it on all of our socials. But what you need to know is a week from Friday, I guess that is the 4th, what is it, the 10th of September?
The 10th, I think. Banjo Bowl's on the 11th.
Banjo Bowl's on the 11th. Okay, so there you go. September 10th, Friday night, Winnipeg, Manitoba, the first ever live Lock Shop. We'll get together. We'll do a little cheersing afterwards. And as I said, I'm very much looking forward to getting all of us in the same place at the same time, talking about week 1 NFL. I don't think it could be actually a better week to do this in the entire year, but it's going to be great. And then, of course, we'll get into an awesome day on Saturday. We'll all be there at the game. Hopefully we'll see you there. And maybe have a little bit left on Sunday for about 12 hours of beer drinking in NFL football.
Well, listen, I made the veteran move. I mean, this is fantastic. I'm so excited about this. This is actually going to be my first time ever in the province of Manitoba. I've never made it to Manitoba, never made it to Winnipeg, so I'm really, really looking forward to it. And yes, I made the veteran move of booking my flight out midday on Monday, just in case things get out of hand.
Just
Smart
in
thinking.
case.
Smart thinking. I'm leaving mid to late afternoon Sunday so I can get the first games in before I have to rush to the airport to come home. So very smart planning by all of us. It should be an excellent time. Really looking forward to that. And Huss, do you think the Polish Prince of Parlays, Gitch, is he going to swing by or what?
I think that is almost a guarantee. He'll come in from Steinbach. Some of the other regulars that are popping in the live stream or hanging out with us on Twitter will come by. We'll try and put together maybe a few prizes to give away for some folks and figure out some fun ways of doing it. But I will tell you, it'll be a great way. That weekend is always so much fun. Labor Day trip is legendary with Winnipeggers and Manitobans heading out to Saskatchewan. But ever since we were able to kind of grind the gears and get that Banjo Bowl day moved to Saturday, it's completely changed that weekend here in Winnipeg. I mean, now people from Saskatchewan can come in for the game and still have the day to get home because, of course, it's not a long weekend. So hopefully people can pop by there on Friday. We'll have a bunch of our crew out there getting ready to really get into it. And, of course, the fact that it's Banjo and week 1 of NFL, I mean, as I said, I don't think you could pick a better weekend in the entire calendar to get the guys together to do this. So everyone mark it down. In and around 7 o'clock on the Friday night. We'll confirm the location over the course of the next week, and we'll look forward to seeing you here in Winnipeg for the first ever live lock shop and getting us all together. One can only imagine how much fun that evening will be.
Gitch has commented on the live stream. He says, count on it. So he's gonna be there with an 11-game NFL parlay for us for the weekend. So that should be good. Kris, how's with preseason now behind us, I mean, things really picking up here with the National Football League?
Yeah, I mean, like you and I talked about on the extravaganza last night, we're starting to see a lot more futures bets come in. Some people snuck in that Mac Jones plus 900 yesterday, and I think you might be right. I think that might be a little bit of overreaction to Offensive Rookie of the Year. But, like we saw last year with a guy like Justin Herbert, who wasn't the number 1 pick, who wasn't, the most celebrated guy coming into the season, if you get the opportunity and you're on a decent team, a lot of good things can happen. I mean, Joe Burrow was obviously off to a fantastic year before he got hurt, but he was on a bad team. I think Mac Jones is going to have some protection. He's got a decent defense, and he's got the greatest head coach in NFL history. So, I mean, if you were able to sneak that in at 9-1, and he's now the starter in New England, you're sitting on some value. But you're right. I think maybe now to the favorite might be a little bit of an overreaction.
I was looking at it last week, or maybe early last week. It was plus 1050. And I was having a conversation with a friend, and I said, you know what? I mean, I'm sort of tempted to maybe throw down on that, but how long is it going to take for him to get the starting job to even have the opportunity to really be with the guys that are getting starting in week 1, and sort of shied away from it? And sure enough, I mean, here we are at plus 250 today on that. I just think, I mean, when it comes down to it, we haven't even mentioned Zach Wilson. And Wilson, let's face it, the expectations are a big part of this as well. Like, if Mac Jones and Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence all have similar seasons, I think anyone, maybe Wilson gets the nod because he's going to a much worse team that I think has, very, very limited expectations. Jacksonville with Urban Meyer coming in, their schedule, the division that they're in, getting Houston a couple times. I think there's sort of an expectation that Lawrence and the offense will at least do some things. The whole thing with Mac Jones is that he might not need to have the best numbers, but if the Patriots turn it around and win the division or are in the playoffs, Kris, we'll be talking about the difference that Mac Jones made. And let's face it, the focus on the Patriots week in and week out is only going to help them. So I understand why the number is where it is. But we've been talking about Trevor Lawrence for 3 years as being the best quarterbacking prospect to come in since Peyton Manning. If he's not even going to be the favorite, I'm jumping on him. I think there's value at 4-1.
I don't know, guys. There's some work going on outside my place. Is that coming through the microphone now?
We can hear it a little bit. We don't need to keep you much longer.
Might be a good time to bail.
Yeah. Well, hey, we'll catch up with you next week, Kris. How's that sound?
Sounds good, fellas. Thanks so much.
There you go.
Later,
That's Kris Abbott from Coolbet Canada. He had some work happening at his place. It's just quickly on the offensive rookie thing, because you laid out some pretty good cases. 3 of the last 6 winners have been running backs, and Najee Harris is plus 1050 right now. And this is a guy who is going to have a massive workload in Pittsburgh. He should be on the field the majority of the time. Last year, they had to throw the ball all the time because they literally could not run it. They used a first-round pick to bring him in. I don't hate Najee Harris at more than 10-1. And to be honest with you, if Kyle Pitts lives up to the hype at 13-1 and he goes off for 1,000 yards as a rookie, as a tight end, he's probably going to win it.
You know what? I was just about to mention that. You make a great point with Najee Harris, as well as the history of this award. Now, I mean, honestly, rookie quarterbacks have had a tough time, really sort of shining in the past few years, up until Herbert had that brilliant season that he did last season. But Najee Harris is going to be the horse for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Tomlin with where this team is at right now. I mean, remember last year? I mean, Ben Roethlisberger was throwing 55 times a game. They had absolutely no running game. That's not happening again. That's why they went and picked this guy. They're going to rely on their defense. They will try and run the ball, and they'll try and establish a run game that allows them to maybe give a little bit more room for the likes of Chase Claypool and the Pittsburgh receivers. So I think there's value there. And the Kyle Pitts is interesting. I mean, with Jones gone, Calvin Ridley's going to be the number one target, but I mean, they picked him at 4th overall for a reason. He's going to get the ball and he'll have a ton of opportunities. And, I know a lot of fantasy people are high on Kyle Pitts, even though he is a rookie coming in here. I mean, if he does have a massive season, we all know the name. He was a 4th overall pick. I think he'll be in there. So it's natural for us to assume quarterbacks just because they have so much opportunity to show what they can do and they are such difference makers. But both of those guys, I think, have great value when you consider that there is an inner bias towards quarterbacks when it comes to MVP awards or things like Rookie of the Year.
All right, let's get to our Tour Championship picks. I think the graphic says BMW Championship, but it's the Tour Championship. And you know what, Huss? I love your picks. I'll fix that graphic while you're talking here, but I love your picks because these are your two guys. You've gone to these guys so often this year. I just love seeing that's where we're going to wrap this thing up.
I am. This is a weird tournament, and we're starting with the staggered group. Let me just pull up the odds right now. For the entire event. It's Pat Cantlay starting at -10. Tony Finau is at -8, and then DeChambeau is in at -7, and John Rahm is at -6. So the favorites right now, obviously Cantlay with that head start, he's at +50, and John Rahm is at +350. And there's been a little bit of movement as well today, because DeChambeau's now at 6-1, and Tony is actually at 8-1. So this number is even better. Tony's starting 2 shots off the lead. And of course had it. But I looked at this and it's so hard to handicap. This isn't like a regular tournament, saying, well, how are the guys playing? Where are they starting? Who are the other guys? I totally get why Rahm and Cantlay are the favorites. But I mean, betting +350 to win a golf tournament isn't really the way that I like to roll. So I'm going to go with my 2 guys, Tony Finau and Cam Smith. And of course, they were head to head in the playoff a couple weeks ago. Unfortunately, I was far more heavily invested in Cam and he put it into the drink on the first playoff hole. But I've never been happier to lose a bet than that because Tony Finau deserved to win. And like we talked last week, I really think that he's in a headspace now that he's got that monkey off his back. He knows he's one of the best in the world, and he will absolutely have a chance to win. So, considering his starting position in second, 2 shots back of Pat Cantlay, and now getting 8-1, I'm definitely in on Tony. And, Cam Smith, there's only a handful of guys that have a better starting spot than him. I think he's still somewhat pissed off about what happened a couple tournaments ago. And the bottom line is this guy has been in it in almost every tournament he's played all year long. So at 25-1, again, it'll be a smaller bet, much more of a long shot. But I wasn't going to go into the Tour Championship without having him on the card. Now, what's interesting is you can bet at Coolbet the winner without the stroke. So let's take away the starting and just talk about what's going to be happening at East Lake in Atlanta. And Xander Schauffele, I got it at 12-1. That's actually down to 11-1. He had the best score last year. I believe he was 1 shot off the year before. He's consistently been very, very good at East Lake. He's starting at 2 under. So to think that he could win the tournament is probably unlikely considering how much ground he has to make up and, the starting positions for other guys. But just strictly on course history and form, I think Xander Schauffele's got a good chance to be that guy. So it was 12. Now it's 11. He and Dustin Johnson and John Rahm, the far away favorite at +650 to be the guy. And that's sort of the reason why he's +350 despite starting 4 strokes back from Patrick Cantlay. I'll tell you one thing, though. If Cantlay brings that putter he had at the BMW and continues to do what he did, this thing is not going to be close because I don't know how anyone catches him when he's sinking putts from anywhere on the golf course.
Yeah, that was a pretty ridiculous one. I can't imagine he would be that great again with the putter. But if he does, you're right. It's tough to given a guy who's putting that well the advantage of being at 10 under. I know 350 is not ideal, but I'm still doing it. John Rahm's he's been too bloody good. Like if anybody is in a situation where, hey, you're starting behind 4 strokes, can you still go get it done? If there's one guy over the last 2 or 3 years that would be the answer to that question, it's John Rahm in 2021. So I'm going to go with him. Since the U.S. Open, he's finished 7th, T3, solo 3rd, and T9. Like he's finished top 10 in 5 events. East Lake scoring average of just over 68 around. If anybody's going to come back and catch Cantlay, it's probably John Rahm. So I wish this was like plus 500, plus 600. It's not. It's plus 350, but I'll go with him at plus 350. Justin Thomas is the other one, a little bit of a longer shot. What's he start at? 4 under. So that's why you're going to get him at plus 1,800 right now, 18-1. But similar to what you mentioned with Xander and their record at East Lake, Justin Thomas at East Lake has been unbelievable. He's got a pair of runner-ups among 5 top 7s in as many trips. Whenever he shows up at East Lake, he finishes in the top 7. So here he is again. He'd have to go on a run. He hasn't been putting well lately, but if he can figure that out this week, he's got just as good a chance as anybody to help get it done. And then winner without strokes, Rory's won twice at East Lake. He's played extremely well there. I had him at 11-1 this morning to win the events without the strokes. You mentioned Schauffele. I'll go with Rory at 11-1 just because of his history at this course as well. So I would say, what's he start at? 2 under? He'd have to go on a ridiculous run to win this entire thing or have some guys come back to him. But to just have the best score of this event, I like him at 11-1.
Yeah, Rory had that interview where he said, he was so burnt out. He's been playing so much golf, and then he went out and shot -8. So, these guys are still absolutely incredible. And let's not forget, I know it's not a major, but folks, these dudes are playing for $15 million, and they are all independent contractors. This could certainly be the difference for a big year. And listen, I know there's a lot of pit money, and there's a lot of talk about that with Cantlay and DeChambeau and what happened last week and what's been happening off the course. But I'll tell you what, these guys are all focused. It's a weird format. I'm still not totally used to it, but I do sort of like it that no matter what happens, when you look at the leaderboard, you know where the guys are, you know what's at stake. And it does make sense. You need to reward these players for what they've done coming up to this part of the year, because this is the playoffs. This is for the entire season. Pat Cantlay, Tony Finau, DeChambeau, they've earned their spots. They deserve a bit of a better chance to win. But again, it's going to take 72 holes of really good golf considering the field and what is on the line. Great way to finish up the FedEx Cup playoffs.
DeChambeau's going to ruin this for everyone, isn't he?
I don't know, man. I don't know, dude. I think he is rattled after what happened last week. Like, you can hit it as far as you want, but when it comes down to it, it's about sinking putts when you have to do it. I'm not saying Bryson can't putt or anything like that, but that's a loss. And especially when you heard about what happened afterwards. Someone say, hey, nice shot, Brooks. He completely lost it. The tour is now kicking people out for saying that, which is incredibly soft. But that's a whole nother topic. I'll say this. I understand why his number is where it is, but I don't know. I think there's going to be a little bit of scar tissue from what happened last week against Cantlay in that epic playoff right now. And I'm staying away from Bryson. Not to mention, it would be like, that's like, betting on the Leafs. You don't want them to win. So why would you get behind them? You'd have to tell me that he is for sure winning to actually put it down on Bryson. I'm not there.
All right. So next week with the NFL returning, probably a Tuesday show, and then Friday live Lock Shop edition from Winnipeg, which will be 2 episodes next week.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's September. We got to get to it. There's so many other things happening. On the early show in the week, we'll be doing the Canadian Football League. We can start looking at some hockey odds and whatnot as we get into it. Baseball, partner parlay, all of that stuff. Maybe
even an early line in the NFL that we really like that might move, right? Like, yeah,
for sure. And then the Friday show during NFL season will be pretty much all about the NFL picks, our best bets, upsets. We can do dog pounds. We'll do all of that stuff. Yeah. And of course, we'll also be finalizing our official picks for the Circa contest, which is a few $1 million up at the grab. We've got a lock shop team, the two of us and Kris. So we will reveal the week 1 selections next week live in Winnipeg. We'll let you know where that is happening next week, but we hope to see all of you that are in the area. And as I said, if you're a Saskatchewan listener or viewer that's coming in for the Banjo Bowl, keep an eye on our social media. We'll let you know where to go. It'll be a good way to kick off the weekend.
It's coming up on Winnipeg Sports Talk today, buddy.
Well, we're going to be talking about Canada's big win last night, the World Women's Hockey Championships. We're going to get into more of what's happening in and around the National Hockey League with Jack Eichel, the Kotkaniemi offer sheet, what is going on with Evander Kane in San Jose, Dave Pagnotta from the fourth period coming by. And one of my favorite guys outside of you, of course, to talk football with, Mo Khan in Montreal will join us.
He's great.
We'll get a little bit
Love
of
Mo.
CFL, and I want to get Mo's takes on the upcoming NFL season. So we'll have a little bit of everything coming up in just under a half an hour, 1 o'clock on YouTube. You can hit us up at Winnipeg Sports Talk. Make sure you subscribe, or wherever you're listening to the podcast. If you're listening to this after the fact, pop in Winnipeg Sports Talk, give us a sub, and you get a couple hours of fresh content every afternoon right into your inbox in time for your drive home.
Sounds good, buddy. Have a good show. Enjoy Labor Day weekend in the Canadian Football League. We'll be back on Tuesday with our next episode of The Lock Shop, and then live from Winnipeg next Friday night. Should be awesome. Huss, good episode, man. We'll catch up again next week.
Oh, man, this is what it's all about, dude. Best time of the year. Behave yourself in Regina. Have a great call. Should be an awesome football game, and can't wait to run it back with you here in the Peg next week for a live lock shop and, of course, the Banjo Bowl and week 1 of NFL. I am ready to go.